Okay, so Local Fury, done for you, data manipulation and engagement signals for Google Business Profiles. This is strictly a Google Business Profile app or service. So we're going to get into this, guys. Today, what we're going to cover is the 4 components for Google Business Profile ranking, Local Fury signals, examples of results, and then tips for best results as well. And this is critically important. And a lot of these kind of tips for best results have been revealed to me from our alpha and then beta testers. And this is precisely why we do that, right? So that we can find weaknesses that need to be strengthened as far as the process and everything else. So we're going to get into each one of these, but starting with the 4 components of Google Business Profile ranking. These are the 4 kind of main areas for ranking in local ranking, specifically with Google Business Profiles or ranking in maps. Having a validated entity, which starts with a verified profile. That's not necessarily like the only thing that's required. What I mean by that is, if you guys think about, like when you start with perhaps like a new brand with a new Google Business Profile, just having a verified profile typically isn't good enough. What I mean by a validated entity, well, when I say validated entity, I mean it's verified and it's also popping a knowledge panel for a brand search, if that makes sense. So these are one of the things that I always try to do with new Google Business Profiles is, if it's not already popping a knowledge panel, which sometimes, like if it's brand new, or if you're dealing with a Google Business Profile that is weak, that hasn't really had any work done to it, or if it's really generic or something like that and it's not pop. So you know how a lot of SEOs that are spammers like ourselves will sometimes create Google Business Profiles with a generic name as opposed to an actual brand name. And those are difficult to get to pop a knowledge panel. So one of the things that I always try to do with all new Google Business assets is try to strengthen the entity or validate the entity enough to where it can pop a knowledge panel for a brand search. Does that make sense? So that's one of the most important things to do, is to kind of, so why I'm saying this is because having a verified profile just means that you were able to get it verified and published and verified because you received a postcard and you submitted the PIN or whatever verification method it is that you used. If you were able to get it verified, that means it's verified and now published, but that doesn't mean it's a validated entity. What I mean by that is generally having the knowledge panel pop when you do a search for the brand name. And that's usually a sign of a healthy Google Business Profile, if that makes sense. If you can't get a knowledge panel to pop for a brand search, then it means there's generally some entity issues that need to be resolved. You need to strengthen the entity, validate it and strengthen it. And there's a number of things that can do that, including engagement signals. Okay. Which is one of the things, which is what we're going to be talking about today mainly. But that's one of the kind of primary things that I always try to do, especially with new assets or new projects. On-page optimization, which has several kind of subcomponents or different pieces that make up the on-page optimization, which would be content, well optimized or well-tuned content, the structure of your primary website. So a self-hosted site, that's kind of an important part of, and whether it's self-hosted or not, like even if you were using like the Google Business website, for example, which can be done. I have a number of tree service locations that don't have self-hosted websites. We just use the Google Business website, but having proper structure to that as well is also important. Okay. So when I say content, well-tuned content is going to be important for all types of SEO, whether it's local, organic, whatever. But structure is also important too. So having a well-structured website if you're doing a self-hosted site, or at least having your content structured properly if you're not using a self-hosted site, like the Google Business website, for example. Okay. Branded assets. I consider branded assets as on-page optimization, even if they're, external platforms. What I mean by that is like a branded G site or Google Sites plus a Drive stack, or so that's, even though that's off site, in other words, it's another platform, right? Because it's branded, I still consider that on-page optimization. Any sort of branded assets I consider on-page optimization now. Didn't used to 3 or 4 years ago, but now I do. I consider those all kind of on page. So branded tier 1 entity assets. So the Google site, Drive stack, ID page, Press Advantage organization page. If you're using that, if you've been following Semantic Mastery for any length of time, you know that that's a critical part. of what we do as part of our kind of what the folks over at Heavy Hitter Club had when Marco and Rob were kind of still part of Semantic Mastery. We call that the Seo Shield. Okay, still use those now. That has not changed at all. So the ID page, press advantage organization page, the G site drive stack, branded syndication network properties or tier one branded tier one entity assets. Those are all really important as well. Okay. So again, those would be like syndication network properties, Blogger, Tumblr, WordPress, social media properties, all of that kind of stuff. So all those branded assets are considered on page, in my opinion. That's the way that I build everything now. And then posts. So when I say posts, I'm talking specifically about Google Business Posts, right? So that's publishing posts regularly. That can kind of also fall under content, but it's more about the activity signals, generating, I talk about in the Google Business SOP, which is available in the mastermind, or you can get the checklist version of it, which is kind of a simplified version of it. I talk about doing Google Business Post silos. That's kind of part of the structure. Actually, we do push silos and also mirror silos. Those are kind of two things that we cover as far as on-page optimization, but those are what I call structured components. It's a combination, right? Because it's posts, but we develop those posts in a push silo or mirror silos. We publish those posts in a very specific structure, right? And so those are important too. But apart from those, I'm talking about just posting regularly Google Business Posts at least once a week. And different industries are going to require different kind of posting frequency of publishing schedules. But generally, for most types of businesses, as long as you're posting once per week, that's what I consider activity posts. Those are kind of important for keeping the Google Business Profile fresh with new kind of signals, new content, and that helps to kind of tickle the freshness factor. It helps satisfy Google's freshness, desire for fresh content, right? So those are on-page optimization components. Then the off-page optimization for local projects is citations, backlinks, and reviews. At least those are kind of the three things that I consider as off-page. Citations, traditional citations, you guys know, are business directory listings. Those are what I call structured citations or traditional citations. There's also non-traditional citations, which would be like social citations or name, address, and phone number mentions on like social media properties, image share sites, video citations. So that would be name, address, phone number within a video description, whether that's YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. So I call those more like non-traditional citations. So traditional citations are business directory listings. Non-traditional citations are mentions of name, address, and phone number with or without a website link, published on other assets, other platforms besides traditional business directories. Okay. Backlinks, you guys all know what backlinks are. That's still an important off-page signal. It's a very important off-page signal. It's becoming less of an overall piece of the ranking pie, so to speak, as engagement signals take more, as engagement signals become more important, backlinks become less important. Not entirely. I mean, again, they're still very, very important, but engagement signals, I feel, are at least my assumption, kind of my prediction is that as engagement signals become more and more important, backlinks will become less important. I don't know that they'll ever be completely, taken away as part of one of the major ranking factors, but I know that they are less important now than they were a couple of years ago, if that makes sense. They're still important though. Don't get that wrong. All right. And in reviews is also kind of an off-page signal because reviews can be published on various other platforms, right? So like Facebook reviews, Yelp, a lot of the other directories, Yelp, which, filters out a bunch of reviews. I'm sure you guys are aware, but like Yellow Pages, Angie, Lawn Starter, Trustpilot for some of, a lot of those different types of review sites. Those are also what I consider off-page signals. Okay. Then we're talking about user engagement signals. And this is where we're going to spend the time today, is really talking about user engagement signals. These are really a pretty significant part and becoming more of a significant part or more of an important part of what it takes to rank now. And my prediction, like I said, is that engagement signals are going to become more and more important. Why? Because they're harder to spam, right? They're harder to spoof, or harder to manipulate. Not that it can't be done. That's precisely what we're here today about, right? Is because we can manipulate user engagement signals, but it's a lot harder to spam. It's easy to get backlinks, right? It's easy to spam backlinks, which is precisely why Google has started to, there's been a lot of updates, algorithm updates for link spam, to try to fight link spam and all of that. And if you guys have been following us in the last 8 months to a year, you know that I've been doing a ton of training on link building. I've just done a lot of research and developed a lot of kind of my own methods for link building. And one of the things that I talk about with link building is that if you were Google and you were trying to fight or combat, right, link spam, what would you do? Well, if you crawl the link back to its source, and you can, the algorithm can very quickly determine the topical category of the page, and then also look at the topical category of the domain itself. And if it's not a match, a good match between the page relevance and the domain relevance and its target, what it's linking to, then that link is just devalued, right? It's not that it's harmful. It's just that it's not given as much weight, or it's devalued entirely if there's not a relevance match. Does that make sense? And so that's why I'm saying that, engagement signals are harder to spoof, because backlinks, Google has built into its algorithm a very quick check. Like I said, page level relevance and domain level relevance. And if there's not a good match at both page and domain relevance, then that backlinks becomes less valuable. And that's just built into the algorithm now. And so that's why I'm saying, like, it's easy to get a backlink, but it's harder now to get a backlink that is relevant at both the page level and the domain level, which is one of the ways that Google has started to fight, or to, try to reduce link spamming, right? Is because again, and that's just been built into the algorithm now to where it just automatically does that. And if it's not a good match at both the page level and domain level, then that link is just not as valuable as it could be. And so my point in telling you that is that engagement signals, just like Google is doing what it can and manipulating its own algorithm to fight link spam, it's the same thing with user engagement signals, right? Google's going to try to do things to prevent us from spoofing engagement signals, but we're, as SEOs, it's our job to always try to stay a couple steps ahead, right? And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, is user engagement signals, because these are definitely harder to spam than some of these other kind of more traditional SEO signals that we learn how to manipulate. That's our job as SEOs, right? And so that's kind of what we're talking about today, is user engagement signals. And these are some of the signals that can be manipulated. Okay. Click-through rate. You guys are all familiar with that, I'm sure. There's a lot of CTR apps out there, or CTR tools. I've always called it CT spam. So click-through spam is what I've always called it, because again, we're spamming signals. Some people don't like to use the word spam. I don't give a damn. Like, what, to me, it's not a negative word. It's just, it is what it is. It's a descriptive word for what it is that we do. We spam the web, right? Whether it's with content or backlinks, or spam it with engagement signals if we're trying to manipulate click-through rate. But just so you guys are aware, some of you, I can't assume that everybody is. So click-through rate manipulation is about search and click signals, which is a great signal. It's a great signal for ranking, right? Which is, again, it's a user engagement signal. But that's like a search and click signal would be somebody going to Google search or Google Maps and typing in a search query, and then when the results pop up, clicking through to a target asset, or to any asset, but specifically to our target assets. That is a search and click signal, right? And so there's keyword search and clicks. Then there's also branded search and clicks, or another term for that would be navigational search and clicks. So navigational search queries or branded searches. There's also keyword searches. So I've said this for years. I know, Michael Merlino from CTR Geeks, him and Brent Bowser, they did a CTR signal or a CTR training course recently. And I loved it because the first lesson was Michael getting real passionate. Michael Merlino was getting real passionate about branded searches, do branded searches. And that's what I've been saying for years. He just said it with much more passion than I do. And I really appreciate what he did in that training course, because I've been saying it for years. If there was only one thing that I could manipulate with CTR signals, it would be brand searches. Like, in other words, if there was only one thing that I could do with CTR manipulation, and that was it, I would always, always, always choose branded searches as the signal that I would manipulate, not keyword search and click, branded searches. And I've been saying that for years. So I just want everybody to be aware that, like, there's brand searches, which is always the best way to go when you're doing CTR manipulation. And then there's also keyword searches. And then there's a combination of the two, which I would call like compound searches, which would be like brand plus keyword, or brand plus location modifier, or navigational search queries, which would be like brand plus hours of operation, things like that, things that are branded searches that are asking Google to reveal some information about that brand, like brand plus location. And I don't mean like brand plus the city name, but like type it, searching for the brand name location, like the word location. And then Google will show you like the actual street address if it's a business with a storefront business with a published street address, or typing in the brand plus a phone number, right? So, or excuse me, brand plus phone, like asking Google, what is the phone number for this brand, right? Then that will show like a rich snippet right at the top of the search results with the phone number. So those are what I call navigational search queries, right? Which is a kind of a combination between brand and keywords or products or location or hours or phone, if that makes sense. So click-through rate signals, brand searches, which is always, like I said, I put the most priority on those. But then there's also keyword searches, which is like the generic keyword searches that you want to rank for, right? So Local Fury does have some CTR manipulation. There's part of what we do are CTR engagement signals, but that's only a component of it, right? Because like I said, there's a bunch of different CTR apps out there. There's desktop software, there's cloud software, there's various, versions of it. I use a number of CTR manipulation tools and apps myself. So I know that those are important. So that's not all that Local Fury is, but there is a part, some of what we do is certainly click-through rate manipulation. Okay. Some of the other signals though, like dwell time. So that's amount of time spent on the Google Business Profile. So that's in Google Maps, looking at the Google Business Profile, scrolling through, looking at photos, reading reviews, looking at posted questions, liking reviews, liking posted questions, clicking. Some of the other engagement signals would be like clicking for driving directions, things like that. But dwell time is just how much time is spent a profile, a person, a user, a Google user, how much time are they spending on the Google business asset? That is also a ranking factor or an engagement signal that can be manipulated. Interaction with the Google Business Profile data. What do I mean by that? Well, like specifically, if you're looking on a mobile and you do a brand search or whatever, you go to Google Maps and you do a search and you find a business that you want, and you click through to reveal more results about that business, basically like the knowledge panel in Maps for that business, right? Then you scroll through and you look at the services, you look at the reviews, look at the photos. These are the tabs that are kind of at the top of the Google Business Profile in Maps when you're on a mobile, right? You can kind of scroll left to right and see the different types of tabs at the tops of services, reviews, photos, updates, which are posts, about. So clicking through and interacting with some of those kind of sections of the Google Business Profile within Maps, those are also engagement signals. Posting questions and or reviews. Of course, that you guys, I'm sure, are aware that's definitely an engagement signal. So posting questions would be like a user asking a question, like, do you provide free estimates? Do you have references available? Right? Those kind of questions that a user would submit via the Google Business app or the Google Maps app, directly, like posting a question through the Google Business Profile directly to the business owner. So it's a good signal, but just posting a question is not, that is a signal, period. Okay. Whether it's positive or negative depends on the business, depends on So what I'm saying, what I mean by that is when a user posts a question to the business, that is a signal that is generated. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's a neutral signal that's generated. If the business responds, whether it's the business owner, an employee of the business, you as the manager, as a manager, whether as a Google Business Manager for that asset, that profile, could respond. Anybody that has manager access to that profile should be responding to those questions that are posted by users in a timely fashion. If the question is responded to within a timely fashion, that is a positive signal. If the question goes unanswered or is left unanswered for an extended period of time, could be days, whatever, that is a negative signal. So to be clear, a user posting a question is a neutral signal. When the business owner responds to it in a timely manner, that is a positive signal. When a business owner ignores or does not reply to the question at all, or does it and waits for a long time, and so in other words, the question is not being replied to in a timely fashion, that is a negative signal. So I just want everybody to be clear about that. So if one of the things that we're going to talk about in a little bit is that we can post questions to your Google Business profiles as part of our service. We do a random number of questions, between 1 to 5 questions in a month. That is what we will post. We're not going to tell you we're going to post 2 questions a month, because that would be a pattern. That's stupid. We're not doing anything that has any sort of pattern, detectable patterns. Everything that we do is within a range that is randomized, so that we have random signals that are being generated on a monthly basis, so that we don't have any identifiable patterns. Does that make sense? Or traceable patterns. So we're going to tell you, if you want questions posted, you have the option to select that, but only select it if you or somebody that works at the business is going to be replying to those questions in a timely manner, right? So you can set up notifications via Google, via Gmail, or you can set up a Zapier's app, I'm sure. If you're connected with High Level, I know High Level will set up you can set up notifications in High Level if you're connected your Google Business profile through High Level. There's a number of things that you can do to make sure that somebody is getting notified in a timely, like when a question is posted, so that they can go in and answer it fairly quickly. And that is a positive signal. Does that make sense? So we can also post reviews. Now, we're not doing that right now, and there's a reason for that. That's something that we do have the ability to post reviews, but we did not want. We've still got some more stuff we need to work out before we're fully comfortable in posting reviews. Through some of our alpha and beta testers, we have posted reviews, and we have a good stick rate with everything, but we're not 100% comfortable with that yet. We still need a little bit more development, but that is something else. Now, a review posted, again, that is a signal generated. Okay. If it's a positive review, then there's positive sentiment. If it's a negative review, then it's negative sentiment. But in either case, a review is still a signal that is generated to a Google Business asset. What's important is, again, similar to questions, is a business owner should be, or somebody at the business should be, responding to all reviews, right? Whether positive or negative, you should get into the habit of responding to reviews. The time in which you reply or respond to a review isn't nearly as important as it is for questions, but it is still a kind of an important thing that you should be aware of, which is you should be replying to reviews, both positive and negative, because of a few reasons. Number one, again, it's being responsive. Let me back up for a minute. Part of the reason why not responding to a posted question in a timely fashion is a negative ranking signal is because Google rewards businesses who are responsive to their customers. Let me repeat that. Google rewards businesses who are responsive to their customers. Why? Because Google wants a good user experience, wants to provide a good user experience, right? And so a Google user that posts a question and doesn't get replied to, is that a good experience for that user or a negative experience? Does that make sense? So by not replying to posted questions in a timely fashion, it's actually a negative ranking signal, because Google starts to recognize that you're an unresponsive business. You don't have any business being in the Maps 3-pack if you're non-responsive to your customers or to prospects questions, right? Pre-sales questions. So that's why it's important that you respond to those in a timely fashion. Well, when it comes to reviews, again, reviews is a signal that is generated. it can have positive or negative sentiment depending on whether it was a positive or negative review. But it doesn't really, it's not really a negative ranking signal, whether it's positive or negative. Does that make sense? It's just a signal. But when the business or somebody, when the business profile replies or responds to a review, both positive or negative, it doesn't matter. It's about, again, being responsive to your customers, right? So that's a good signal that turns it into a positive signal. Even if it was a negative review, negative sentiment, by responding to that review, to the customer, again, it's kind of another positive signal, because now you're showing Google that you're responsive to your customers. Does that make sense? So that is another signal that can be, manipulated. And reviews, I always recommend replying to them. Again, the time component, replying to reviews is not as important as it is to questions, but you should be replying to reviews. And the last thing about that is it also gives you the opportunity, or the business an opportunity, to inject more relevance into the review by responding and inserting keywords for their products or services and location information, right? So that's always something that I recommend when replying to Google reviews, is that you work into it in a very natural way, not a spammy way, but a very natural way, keywords that you want more exposure for, as well as locations, right? So work in a location in an area that you want to get more exposure for, because again, those all kind of help the Google business asset to start to rank and get exposure in those areas and for those products or services that are mentioned in those reviews. Does that make sense? So that's another part of it. Then upload photos and or video. So that's another engagement signal that can be user-generated engagement signals, right? So that would be to upload a photo or to upload a video, or both, or multiple photos, okay? Tap to call. So that would be like, again, somebody tapping to call the business from a mobile device. They can tap to call the business. And then lastly, driving directions plus navigation. So what do I mean by that? Well, everybody knows driving directions. Somebody can click to get driving directions, but that's usually the extent of it. What about actually driving? So clicking to get driving directions and then hitting the start button in Google Maps to navigate that user, that Google user, to that storefront, to that business location. So it's one thing to click driving directions. That is a good signal, but it's entirely, it puts that signal into a whole nother world, a whole nother, a whole nother universe. Basically, it's so much stronger when there's driving directions clicked first, and then there's driving, actual using Google's navigation to go from wherever it started from, its originating point, to that destination, which would be the business location. This only works for storefront businesses, guys, not for service area businesses. It should be a storefront business where the customers go to the business location, not the other way around. Does that make sense? So again, driving directions are a good signal, but driving directions plus navigation, way better. It's a much stronger signal. Does that make sense? Okay. So the Local Fury signals, these are kind of what we do with Local Fury, guys. Now, we've been building and developing profiles in Google. So Google user profiles with mobile Android operating systems right now. And we are working on desktop profiles as well, but right now it's all mobile stuff. But we have local Google profiles. And when I say real with an asterisk, it's because they're as real as we can make them. We are making, we have the Google profiles that are real profiles that reside in one city, right? They live in a particular city. They stay there. They engage even when they're not, when our profiles are not engaging with our customers' assets. So you guys with your, when they're not in, when our Google profiles are engaging with your submitted assets. So Local Fury assets that have been submitted to Local Fury, they're still engaging with local businesses just at random. Does that make sense? So our profiles remain in the city in which they originated, and they are building, they're staying active all the time. So it's not like those profiles are only on mobile device, on their mobile Android, whenever it's sending signals to Local Fury, assets that have been submitted to Local Fury. And then when those signals have been generated, everything gets shut off and they're dormant, they're hibernating until the next time signals need to be generated. No, these profiles stay active and engaged all the time. Does that make sense? And we do things within, appropriate business hours and all that kind of stuff to make these look as real as possible. And again, to keep our profiles active and engaged all the time so that there's not ups and downs in signals and activity from our profile standpoint. So you can imagine it's been taking us, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, and a lot of effort to develop all these profiles out in each and every city that we have assets that we need to provide signals for. But these become very, very valuable profiles that we can use for a number of things besides what we're just doing with Local Fury. But specifically, like I said, local Google, when I say Google profiles and they're real, is these are way better than just like spammed, profiles that are only active when they're sending signals to target assets, right? These are profiles that are active and engaged on a regular basis. Daily, they're doing things, whether they're sending signals to Local Fury assets or not, it doesn't matter. They're staying active, which is an important part of what we're doing. We engage using the mobile Chrome browser and also using the Google Maps app. Okay, so these are the on Android mobile, which is what we've got right now. As I said, we're working on some desktop stuff too, but we are engaging with Google using the Google Chrome browser on Android, as well as the Google Maps app. Okay, so we're kind of hitting the entity, the brand, from two different angles, mostly maps, but we are doing some stuff within the Chrome browser too, the mobile Chrome browser. Okay, we do brand search and clicks, as I mentioned. We also do some keyword search and clicks, but we always recommend brand search and clicks. We interact and engage with the Google Business Profile. So these were some of the engagement signals that we talked about in the previous slide. We're also doing modified map URLs. So some of you guys probably know what I'm talking about. Some of you probably don't, but manipulated coordinates in the modified map URLs. So that would be like, being able to manipulate the coordinates of where somebody is at the time when they perform a search. So we can simulate kind of like random origination points for a profile based on using manipulated coordinates within a map URL. So all that means is that whenever our profile that is going to engage with a Local Fury, an asset that's been submitted to Local Fury, when it logs in to or opens up the Google Maps app, it will go to visit a modified map URL that has manipulated search coordinates, or excuse me, the manipulated coordinates in there, as well as sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We'll also have a search query appended to that map URL. And now all that does is it basically simulates that profile was in that location at the time with whatever manipulated coordinates we put into that manipulated map URL, that it's at that location when it starts. So then, especially for storefront businesses where they'll start to click a drive or they'll click driving directions and then navigate to that location, it will start the driving from where those manipulated coordinates were in the URL that we, again, manipulated coordinates in the maps or modified map URLs, as I call them. Sometimes there'll be search queries appended, sometimes there won't. Search queries are, again, it's just a Q equals and then the question mark, or excuse me, the search query at the end of the manipulated map URL. And that just will show the search query at the top of the Google Maps. So that's one of the ways that we start to make an association between keywords and the Google profile, right? So again, it's just manipulated or modified map URLs. Some of the additional tasks, some of the additional tasks that I mentioned before is we do the driving. So not just driving directions, but also simulated driving. We do likes, so likes onto photos, reviews, questions, things like that. As far as posting questions, these are, again, we offer you guys the option to select, yes, we want questions posted, or no. But you have to understand that if you select yes, you want questions posted, then it's up to you to respond in a timely fashion, or else those become a negative ranking signal. So again, it has to be 100% clear that you guys are aware of that, okay? Reviews, as I said, we can post reviews that will be available again here shortly. I'm not going to give you an exact time on that yet, but we have some more work to do before we're 100% comfortable in doing that. So that's why we have that feature turned off right now. And then also post photos. So you guys can submit your own photos that we can post, randomly with some of the different profiles that we're going to do to engage with your Google Business asset. We can actually post photos as well. Okay. And again, we do that in a very kind of random way so that there's not really any detectable footprint from that. So if you want, we can post photos as well. Okay. Okay, so here, guys, I'm going to go through just some examples of some of the projects that we have in there, and I blurred out anything that was sensitive, but you guys can see. And by the way, I want to make this really clear. This is not a magic bullet, right? It's not a magic pill. Local Fury does not mean that you can join Local Fury today and submit a Google business profile and wash your hands of any other kind of SEO work. You're done, and you're just going to magically rank. That is not what this is. This is engagement signals, which is a part of an overall strategy for ranking. Let me back up for a minute. Let me go back to right here. These are 4 components. All 4 of these should be met in order for you to rank Google business profiles, right? We're talking about providing with Local Fury these right here, this section here for you. That does not mean that these are all good, and that if you submit a Google business profile to us for us to do all this for you, that none of this has to be in place. If you guys think that you could just submit a profile to Local Fury, walk away, and in a week or a month you're going to be ranked, forget it. Don't join, because you're going to be disappointed. You have to do the other things too, guys. This is not a magic bullet. It's not going to solve all of your problems. But if your entity is validated, right, so it can pop a knowledge panel, and if it doesn't pop a knowledge panel yet, we can help you to get there with what we're doing. Okay. But if you have a validated entity, your on-page is proper, right? So you have at least decent on-page optimization, good content structure. You have the primary branded tier 1, the most critical branded tier 1 assets in place, which again, I've got a list of them that I recommend is standard operating procedure. You should be posting regularly for activity posts at least once a week. Like I said, you have all that in place. You've got fair number of relevant citations that are accurate, right? So not NAP issues. Like, in other words, you have accurate data, not inconsistent citations. You've got decent backlinks that are topically relevant. I know of a good source where you can get topically relevant links too, by the way. Ask me about that later. Getting reviews, all of those kind of things are important. So you should be doing all of this in addition to what we can do for you over here in order to get results. Okay. So I just want to be real clear about that, because I have, I know that some people want to, they join webinars like this and think that this is it. This is the last damn thing I'm ever going to have to do. And I'm going to rank all my clients and everyone's going to be happy. And that's it. But that's not really the case, guys. This is just a component to an overall strategy, right? So here's some examples, guys. Like I said, this was for an SEO company. And you can see that on the 23rd of May, it was at an average map rank of 3.8. And you can see, and that was for a 49, so a 7x7 grid. You can see on the 20th of June, so about a month later, it was at a 2.8. And then on the 25th of July, so about a month later, it was at 2.6. Okay, so you guys can see that this is an example of one of them. Here's another example. This was for a pizza joint. You can see that on the 17th of June, this was at 11.3. On the 12th of July, so about a month later, an 8.7, right? So that's another example. Here's another one for some more SEO company. Now, this that should have been actually the numbers here, but that node was still, or excuse me, that time was still selected when I hovered over this and got that screenshot. I should have clicked on that, because that was actually this was the data or the ranking position, the average map rank for the 49 points on the 16th of June. And then this was the 14th of July. Does that make sense? So it went from a 3 to a 2 in a month for SEO terms. Okay, so this is for a local SEO agency. And you can see that that went from 3 to 2 over the course of a month from, again, sending manipulated map or Local Fury signals. Okay. Here's another one. This was
Bradley, real quick. Sorry. I just realized somehow that I have been chatting to just you guys. I can't chat with the panelists. Can you enable that or pop the link to Local Fury in there? I was like, man, why are people not seeing this? A couple people were asking because they had to hop off, and I put the link in and then realized nobody's seeing it.
Adam, that should be you. Where it says 2, it should say 2, and you should have a drop down, and you should be able to select everyone.
I can't. It just
I cannot
says host
select
and
the
panelist.
Okay.
Well, Bradley, can you pop the link into Local Fury real quick, just so everyone has it?
Yeah, gotcha.
Thanks. Sorry about that, everybody. I just was like typing, like, oh man, everyone's busy typing back and forth. Like, okay, like, I'm just like, wait a second.
Adam's like, how come nobody's responding to my replies? There you go.
It's like, fine.
Yeah, guys.
Sorry about that, everybody.
All right, good enough.
Yep.
So here's another one. This was for a locksmith. And on July 15th, I just went with a different kind of view here, guys, so that you could see, but you could see on July 15th, it was 21 plus. On July 28th, so about 2 weeks later, you can see the kind of movement that went here. And again, this is just showing you what the map signals, or excuse me, the engagement signals that we send do. Now, a lot of the screenshots that we're showing you now were from assets that we intentionally were not doing the on-page stuff that I was talking about. So, you know, when you combine the two and you do the engagement signals with proper on-page, with posting, with optimized content, with appropriate backlinks and proper topical category or local links, which is, you know, kind of different as well. You do all of those things together and you can see even bigger movement, right? Again, and by the way, guys, it's not always 100% of the time going to be 100% positive movement. Just so you know, when you start to send new data into, you guys are all familiar with the Google Dance, right? The Google Dance. When you change the structure of a site significantly, the site, even if it's an established site and has been, you know, ranking for wherever it ranks, let's say it's in the top 5 and it's an established site, but you change the site structure significantly, what happens? It starts to dance. There's volatile swings, both positive and negative ranking jumps in ranks. Does that make sense? Same thing with backlinks. Even if you don't touch, or even if you don't touch the on page, but you start to send backlinks to a project, then that's new data. You'll start to see things dance when new data is applied, because the algorithm is trying to figure out what to do with the new data, right? And so I see it with on-page changes. I see it with backlinks, which I, you know, run a link building business. So I see this all the time. We start sending backlinks to a project and sometimes we see negative movement, right? It's initially that's going to happen. Same thing with engagement signals. When you inject new data into a project, the algorithm has to adjust. It takes in the new data and it tries to determine what to do with it. So we are showing you positive results for sure, but there is going to be times where there's going to be some negative movement, and that's normal. That is absolutely normal, right? So I just want you guys to be aware of that. Like because I know that sometimes, you know, if somebody submits a location and a week later, their maps coverage has actually gone backwards a bit, like the alarm bells go off, right? Like, oh, your local fury's fucking up my project now. And that's not it. It's new data, guys. You gotta be patient and allow it to work. Does that make sense? So I just, you know, we are definitely showing you positive movement here in short periods of time, but there are times where you'll see some negative movement at first. But that's precisely what this process is for, is to increase maps exposure over time and do it in a very smart way, which we're going to talk about best practices here in a minute. So you guys are probably going to learn some things on how to get better results from this, just from what I'm going to share with you in a minute. Okay.
Yeah, this is actually the most important part, like the best practices. So make sure you stay on and actually pay attention to what's coming next.
Yeah. That's funny. Somebody says, can we get a pill for that? It's called patience. Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice. But I know in SEO, it's, you know, I struggle with being patient in SEO. There's no question. So we all want results, and we want results yesterday, right? But you got to be patient. It's just the same thing. Like, guys, it's the same kind of thing where it's like, if you do some sort of on-page change, and usually the dance period's about 3 weeks, right? It's usually about a 21-day period where things start to move around a lot at the Google Dance before it really decides what to do with the new data. The problem is, and we see this all the time, like, you know, in teaching SEO and talking with, you know, members or students or whatever over the years, what happens? You go in and you make a change and start, and you do an on-page change, and you know, you execute, you update, publish the change, and then over the next week, things start shifting, right? Things start to dance, and you see negative movement. And what do people often do? They often freak out and they go in and start making more changes, right? And next thing you know, now you've just kind of reset the clock on that 3-week dancing period, right? And you don't know whether that first change you made was going to ultimately have a positive effect or a negative effect, because as soon as it started dancing and you saw some negative movement, you go in and you start changing more shit. Then you have no idea. Then now you've just screwed up your first change, because you don't know whether that had a positive effect or a negative effect, because you moved too soon. You started making other changes before that first change finally fully settled in. Does that make sense? And so the same thing goes with these types of signals, guys. Like, you send signals to it, and then you want to kind of, I recommend you still do all of your on-page things, but allow the signal work to start producing effect, right? You don't want to go in and do significant changes after, like, again, if you go in and you change an H1 tag, for example, or an H1 heading, or an SEO title for a post or a page on your site, and it starts to dance around in the results. Well, you don't want to go in and re-optimize all the content, because now you don't know whether that SEO title or H1 heading change was actually a positive thing or a negative thing, because you first made that H1 change or SEO title change, one or the other or both, and then you go in and you rearrange all the content or redo the content or re-optimize or whatever. You have no idea. Once it fully settles in, you don't know whether it was the SEO title or the heading change that had the effect, or if it was the content or what. And so the same thing goes with this stuff, guys. Like I said, you want to make sure that you're being patient. You're allowing the signals work to produce an effect. Okay. So here's another one, guys. Here is an example of what, and this is really interesting. And again, we're going to get to best practices, I think, on the next slide, but I want to talk about this. This was a new Google business asset that you can see had basically, this is Gmb Insights or Google Business Insights. Okay. And this is showing the search query report. Okay. And this is showing that there was negative or less, less than 50 searches in a month for this particular business location on the 24th of July. Okay. And this was on 8/8. So today you can see that the same location now has search queries that are popping. Does that make sense? And this was just an example of what happens when you start to send signals to the maps. And this is where we're going to talk about how you guys can monitor the signals that are being generated to your Google business assets. And that is through Google Insights, right? Google Business Insights is where you're going to see we're going to provide you with Bright Local search grid reports. That's what we'll do. Like our reporting in Local Fury up until now has just been Bright Local search grid reports. But in the call that I had with one of our members last week, one of our beta testers last week, which again, as I mentioned, was freaking gold, because I realized that there's some really critical things that need to be addressed when submitting your locations to Local Fury. That was revealed to me in the call last week with one of our beta testers. And so Google Business Insights is actually better than the local search. Well, the local search grid report shows you the results that the signals can help you to achieve. But if you want to see the signals activity, you want to look at the Google Business Insights report, because you will see a rise and increase in activity signals through there. So through the call that I had with a beta tester last week, that's when it dawned on me that Google Business Insights is the report that we should be providing. We're also going to provide you with a local search grid report from Bright Local. That is what we use for reporting. And by the way, Bright Local is not available in every country. So we know that we already have some members in Local Fury that are in some countries that Bright Local just does not provide data for. And if that's the case, and I'm sorry, we cannot provide you with local search grid reports, we may come up with something else. I know Chris, my partner Chris, was going to be looking into some alternative reporting tools as well. But Google Business Insights integrates with Bright Local. And so we're going to be reaching out to our existing Local Fury members, and asking, we created a generic workspace account on it. So a generic email that we're going to be asking for manager access for the Google Business profile, so that we can integrate with Bright Local, what they call Google Business Profile or GBP Audit Reports, which pulls insights reports into the Bright Local reports. And that's where you can monitor your engagement signals to see that there's an increase in activity. Okay. And this will make some more sense here in just a minute when we talk about best practices. All right. So the tips for the best results, guys, first and foremost is to select the appropriate keywords. Well, I say first and foremost. First and foremost is go back to slide 2, which is to do all of these things, right? All of this stuff. So best practice or tips for best results is make sure that you have all of this in place, right? And that you're doing activity posts regularly. You're building citations, accurate citations with consistent data. You're building backlinks, collecting reviews, doing all the things that, you should be doing anyway. All right. So that's first and foremost. I should have put that in the slide actually, but I didn't. But as far as Local Fury, what is the most important things to do? Well, select the appropriate keywords. Make sure they pop a maps pack. You want to go after commercial or transactional keywords and keywords with local intent. So what I'm saying by that is, again, through one of the calls I had last week, I realized that there was some several of the keywords that were submitted for Local Fury were informational search queries. Those are queries that people search Google for, but not Google Maps for, right? The keywords that you guys should be submitting should be keywords that people would go to Google Maps to search. People go to Google for informational searches, like if they're trying to learn about a topic. So like, for example, cost of tree removal, right? Or the average cost of tree removal. And I'm just using that, tree services of the industry that I'm in. So somebody doesn't go to Google Maps to search for cost of tree removal or tree removal prices, right? People go to Google for that and they search for that so that they can learn about what the average cost of tree removal is and that kind of stuff. But they're not going to go to Maps for that. Somebody go to Maps, search for tree removal company near me, right? Or tree removal service or something like that. That's a transactional keyword or a keyword with local intent or commercial intent. So you want to think about which keywords you're submitting. It's a keyword that somebody would go to Google Maps for to search, not Google. Do you guys understand the difference between the two? Does that make sense? You want to search for keywords that pop a local map pack that have local intent, something that somebody would search for in Google Maps, not in Google. Is that, if that makes sense? So brand searches are still important for that. Actually, those are great types of searches in Google Maps, is to search for the brand, but also look for keywords that pop a maps pack. So how do you do that? Well, we're working on developing a tool for that, guys, as part of Local Fury, or it might be an external tool, but we are working on developing a tool for that. In the meantime, you could either go, think about it logically, or you can use a tool like this, which is Lloyd Farrell's tool of Mass Optimizer. You guys are probably familiar with Lloyd, but he has this tool called 3-Pack Hunter that you can get. It's a simple software. It's a desktop software, though. We're going to develop a tool that is cloud-based that will do something similar to this. So it's not ready yet. That's why I'm pointing this out. You guys, I'm just pointing this out. This is not an affiliate link, but this is just in case you guys, have a lot of different projects and a lot of different keywords to test. This is a good tool for that until our solution is available. But the 3-Pack Hunter is a desktop software that basically you put all your keywords in column 1 of a CSV or Excel file. You save it as a CSV file, and then you upload it to the software and you hit go. And all the software does is it opens up like a UBot Studio or whatever Chromium browser, and it goes to Google, does a search for the keyword on row 1. And if it pops a maps pack, then it puts an X in column 2. And if it doesn't pop a maps pack, then it just leaves column 2 blank and goes to the next keyword. And then it just does that keyword line by line by line, and it pops an X into the next column or an identifier, whatever it is, into the next column. And then when it's done, you can sort by column 2 that contains a value. And the ones that contain a value, those are maps pack keywords. The ones that don't contain a value, those don't pop a maps pack. Does that make sense? That's a very, this is just a tool. It's like $18 a month, I think. It's like, yeah, $18 a month. But if you had a whole bunch of keywords that you were trying to determine pop a maps pack or not, this is a good solution until we have one available, which will be a cloud-based app for Local Fury. Does that make sense? So keyword selection is critically important, guys. If your keyword is not popping a maps pack, or if your brand does not appear, the brand of the submitted location does not appear in the top 20 results for whatever keyword it is that you're entering, then that's probably not a good keyword to add to Local Fury. I understand that you want to get pushed onto the first page of the maps results, preferably into the top 3. But what we're saying is always start with the lower hanging fruit. Start where you already have some exposure and push on those keywords, which will make those rise higher and will start to provide, you'll start to see in Google Insights, which is what I was showing you, in the search query insights, you'll start to notice that when you use Google's Insights data, especially, which will show you the keywords that your maps location, your Google business profile is already getting exposure for in maps, and you start to manipulate signals to those keywords will start to improve in ranking, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing more search queries appearing in search queries in the search query report and insights. So what I'm saying is you always want to start with keywords that the Google Business Profile is already getting exposure for, impressions for in maps, and start manipulating those. So pushing signals onto those using those keywords. And then they'll start to improve. And as they start to improve, you'll start seeing more keywords appearing in the search query report in Insights. Then we can start adding those in to the rotation for CTR and maps engagement signals. Does that make sense? So that, again, that goes back to, we're going to recommend, this is certainly not required, but we're going to recommend that you provide us with Google Business Manager access. It's one email account that we will use for reporting. It's generic, so it doesn't say Local Fury in the email or anything like that. In fact, it's tech@mapsmonitor.com. That's the email that I set up. I set up a Google Workspace account specifically for that. So it's tech@mapsmonitor.com. That's what we're going to ask you as a Local Fury customer to add us as a Google Manager using that email address, so that we can integrate with Bright Local, what they call GBP Audit Reports. Okay. And that's what, here, let me just show you what that looks like. This is just an example of one of those. This is what it looks like inside Bright Local. So just so you guys know, in the Local Fury dashboard, we have a dashboard area where you can go and submit locations, and we have a report portal inside the dashboard area, which is an embedded Bright Local report. And up until now, we've just been providing the local search grid reports. But like I said, this week, we're going to start reaching out to existing members and you guys that are coming in new today. We're going to be asking that you provide us with manager access, again, tech@mapsmonitor.com. And once you do, then we can pull in Google Business Insights via a Bright Local. And this is what that GBP audit report looks like. You can see it says up there, GBP Audit Report. And so again, in the Bright Local reports, you will have the local search grid reports as well as the GB Audit Report, which is basically Insights. And those are embedded right inside the Local Fury dashboard. All right. And so this is, again, this is important because this is how you can start to see signals activity. And as I said, you can monitor the signals that we're generating and see the increase in activity. The local the local search grid report will show you the results that these signals will produce, again, over time. But then why it's important to us is because it helps us to start to, first of all, make sure that whatever keywords you submit, we're going to double check as long as we have Google Business access we have Insights access. We can go and check and look at the search queries that are currently available to make sure that there's a good match. If you submit keywords that there's no exposure for the Maps profile yet, then that's not a good keyword. Does that make sense? So giving us the access to Gmb Insights gives us the ability to double check keywords, as well as it helps us with discovery for discovering new keywords as they are getting impressions, or as the Google Business Profile starts to get impressions for new keywords. We can identify those and pull those keywords out from the search query report and plug them in to the campaigns. Again, like I said, you find a keyword, or start with the keywords that are already getting impressions. We start pushing on those, manipulating those. As they start to rise, new keywords will start to pop into the search query report. Then we can pull those out and add those into the campaign. And you can see how it just snowballs, it compounds. Does that make sense? This is very important. So that's why I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to mention something, Bradley. We've been talking about the reporting, and somebody was asking how much is the Bright Local monthly cost. This is all included in the service, you guys. The reporting is included. What Bradley's been talking about, I'll just call it the enhanced or upgraded reporting, is included. There is no extra cost for this. We know that this is important. As part of doing this, you have to be able to track results as well as, give reporting. So this is included. There is no extra cost.
That's right. Yeah. So we're covering that for you guys. It's included in your subscription. Does that make sense? So again, we were just doing local search grid reports, but as of last week, when this was revealed to me, I was like, you know what, we need to integrate GBP Audit Reports, which is Insights, just pulled into Bright Local. And that's going to solve some of the issues that some of our members have been submitting the inappropriate keywords. And that's fine. Look, you can't know what you don't know. And some of you, we're still going to say it's your responsibility to submit the appropriate keywords, but we will, because it's a done for you service, be checking on the back end. And if we find keywords that were inappropriate, or we find, additional keywords that can be worked into the process, then that's what we're going to do. And if you've submitted keywords, that are not a good fit, right, at least initially, then we'll, message you in the support system and let you know, like, hey, listen, you submitted this keyword, but it's not a good one yet. We'll keep this on file so that when it is appropriate, we'll work it in. But until then, this is what we suggest, if that makes sense. Okay. So again, this is a done for you service, guys, because as I mentioned at the top of this, we oftentimes, like with CTR stuff, I can't tell you how many CTR groups I'm in. And you see people come into those groups all the time, and they always want to hammer away at search and click, keyword search and click. And those same questions appear all the time from people that are coming in to that are new to CTR stuff. And that is like, what kind of search volume should I send? And like, how many clicks should I send for keywords with this search volume? And nobody ever mentions brand searches. And again, brand searches are the most important thing. And so I recommend, like, again, it's really your responsibility, but because it's a done for you service, we're going to be double checking and making sure that the appropriate keywords have been selected and submitted and that kind of stuff. Okay. So use Google Business Insights to find the keywords that are already getting impressions. Reply. So again, I mentioned that already. We want to reply to user submitted questions in a timely manner. Again, guys, that is critically important. If you're not going to reply to posted questions, then that's a negative ranking signal. So don't choose to have questions posted unless you can respond in a fairly timely manner. Okay. Also replying to reviews. That's also important. Like I said, you want to reply to all reviews. It gives you an opportunity to work more keywords and or location mentions into it. And then also monitor the Google Business Insights to see increase in activity. So that's where I was talking about having access, manager access, and recommended provide us with Google Business access so that we can integrate with BrightLocal Gbp Audit Reports. That's where I was showing this here. So again, this is, and guys, you'll be able to, like, I also provide BrightLocal reports for my link building clients. And a lot of my link building, and I white label the reports for them. So a lot of my link building clients ended up canceling their own kind of reportings because they just share their BrightLocal reports that I provide with their clients. So I'm saying, like, the BrightLocal reports are going to be inside your local Fury dashboard area. For each location, you have your own separate, it has its own separate report with the local search grid. And if you give us access, which we're going to recommend, we're going to highly recommend the GBP Audit Report, which looks like this. And there's more to it, guys. It's the full Insights report is on this screen. I only took a partial screenshot so that it wasn't super long. It wouldn't have looked good in the slides, if that makes sense. But it pulls in all of Google Business Insights data into this one kind of sheet here, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. So get Local Fury, go to localfury.com, and now I can get into questions.
Sweet. Well, Bradley, if you don't mind, I think what we'll do, because I've been keeping track of these, I definitely want to answer these in terms of Local Fury specific, and then if we have time, some of the other stuff. And then I want to give a shout out to ourselves for Hump Day Hangouts. If you guys aren't familiar with Hump Day Hangouts, some of these questions are more generic, just SEO advice questions. We may not be able to get to those today. That's not really the intention of today, but if we can quickly get to them, we will. But Hump Day Hangouts every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. We've done over 400 episodes, and you can always ask questions there. You don't have to be live. You can go ask a question, and we will answer it. You can check out the replay on YouTube. And that link is semanticmastery.com/HDHO, Hump Day Hangouts. And you can always ask your question there. We just ask you to try to limit it to one. And not fill up the page. But all right, that said, let's get into the question. So first one from BJ plus Minions. Is Local Fury a product service offered by Semantic Mastery? Correct. We are offering this. This is not an affiliate promotion. We have partnered so that we can do this as we're doing it now. We are not the domain experts on the development side. So that's what we partnered with so that we can bring our expertise into this and also get that done on the other side. So to answer the question, yes, it is going to be its own thing, but it's being done under Semantic Mastery.
Yes, that is correct. Okay, next question.
Cool. Okay, gonna skip a few of those. Come back to that one. I think we answered that. Will local Fury, okay, there's a bunch of these questions. I'm going to read a couple, Bradley, so bear with me. It has to do with international stuff. Will local Fury work for New Zealand? Will local Fury cover London? And is it just for the USA?
As far as I know, English-speaking countries are all fine. So Canada, Australia, America, UK. I'm pretty sure New Zealand's in there too. I just had a Semantic Links call last week, somebody in New Zealand, so I'm pretty sure we had a Bright Local report for that. But if you guys have any questions about a particular location, I would suggest go check Bright Local as far as the reporting and go see what's available. There's got to be somewhere on the Bright Local website what countries the data is available for and which ones it's not. If you still can't find the answer to your question as to whether your specific location can be monitored from Bright Local, then just contact us at support@localfury.com and we'll try to find out for you. But before clogging up our support system, guys, with a bunch of questions that you can probably answer on your own, please go to Bright Local and search to see if you can determine whether the Google Business locations that you have, if Bright Local supports those locations, if that makes sense. Exhaust that before contacting our support and clogging up our support with a question that you can probably get answered on the Bright Local site, if that makes sense.
Cool.
Okay.
Follow up not follow up, but this is good too. So 2 questions from different people here. How does this work as far as a service area business? Is this beneficial for service area businesses like HVAC, plumbers, locksmiths, when it comes to driving directions, things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just so you guys are aware, we can run all the signals except for driving signals for a store service area business. Does that make sense? So there, the signals generation definitely there's a bit of an advantage if you have a storefront business because we can do driving. So not only request driving directions, but also navigate to the location, which those are great signals that you can't apply to a service area business. Even if the service area business has a published address, which they're not supposed to, but if they do, and I know in a lot of the cases, it still makes sense to publish an address for a service area business. There is some benefit to doing that, but you got to think about it, guys. Would it make sense to navigate, so simulate driving to a service area business with a published street address when that type of a business should never have anybody ever going to it? No, that's an unnatural signal. So just to be clear, it should be a storefront business for driving signals, meaning the customer goes to the business location to transact business. Does that make sense? Even if it's a service area business, you do not get driving signals. And even if it has a published street address, you should still not get driving signals because it's an unnatural signal that it just isn't, nobody drives to a plumber location. You know what I mean? The plumber goes to the customer location. So there is a bit of a benefit for storefront businesses because of the driving signals. Service area businesses do not get the driving signals, but they get everything else. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. So follow up to the outside of the US question. So they're saying, Bright Local should or might be in New Zealand, but will we create Google accounts in New Zealand for showing that the signals are local?
That's a good question. I think we can. That's a question I'll have to ask the developers.
Yeah, let me write that down because
I'm pretty sure we can do that for sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure for sure. No, I'm pretty sure we can do that, but I need to clarify that with the developer. I can't answer that without clarifying it first.
1 sec. Okay, let me pull the questions back up. We've got that one done. And scrolling back up, bear with me, guys. All right, we got that one. Do we get white label reports? If so, when in 30 days of submission? In general, I'm guessing he's asking, do we get white label reports? And if so, is it within 30 days? I would think, Chris, what's our current time for setup roughly to get reporting started for people? It's within like 48 hours, right?
Let's say 72 hours. Well, let's say 2 working days because there's always the weekends and stuff. So
Yeah, so Ray, to answer your question, white label reports, I mean, that stuff gets up and running and we have it on weekly checks and it's in your account. You can log in at any time and see that. Once you get it going, there is no, restriction on that. So you could pull, grab a screenshot, do whatever you need, whenever you want.
Yeah, and so I saw a question come up because you guys, even though I asked you to post your questions in the Q&A box, there's a lot of questions coming through chat. So some of them are going to get missed because they're not in Q&A box. But anyway, somebody was asking, I saw it come through a minute ago, white label reports. Can we white label the Bright Local reports for you guys as agencies? And yes, we can do that. You'll have to contact support to do it and send us your logo. The logo has to be in the landscape format. 300 by 100 pixels is the recommended size. I will create a tutorial video for this on how to request white label reports. And we'll add that into the knowledge base in the report portal section of the dashboard. There is a knowledge base, which is where we're going to start adding tutorial videos, guys, like keyword selection, Google Business Manager, how to add Google Business Manager so that we can integrate the Gmb Audit Reports, which is the Insights reports. Then also white label reports, things like that. As we discover needs for tutorials, like things that need to be addressed for you guys, we're going to be adding into the knowledge base area, which again is accessible within the report portal of your dashboard. So I've already got a list here of I've got to do a video about posting and replying to questions. I've got to do one about the Google Business Manager. I got to do one about keyword selection, and I've got one now for white label reports as well. So I just want to make you guys aware that yes, we can white label the Bright Local reports for you so that you can provide those to your client, but you're going to need to submit a logo in the appropriate format for us to do that. And we'll handle that through support once I get that tutorial up.
Cool. Let me answer a couple real quick and we'll go back. There will be a replay available. You all will definitely be able to access it. I'm sure we'll have it up later today. And then is the current price launch pricing and will it remain the same or will it go up in the future? Yes, this is most definitely launch pricing. There is no discount code. There's no coupon code. Just head over there. What you see is the launch pricing, making it simple, and the price will go up on Friday, actually. So end of the week. That is the plan with that. So let's go back over here.
I've got in the questions box, I see 26 open questions. So should I just start rolling through those?
No, because some of them I'm going through them in order of local feariness. Some of them are just general SEO questions.
Okay. Well, I'll let you drive the question ship then.
How many keywords are we able to target and what is the grid size?
That's a good question. I think by default, we're doing 7x7 grids. Is that correct, Chris?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure at the moment either.
Yeah.
Gotta check with the developer.
But yeah, what was it? 7x7 with a mile
1 mile
spacing,
space.
and then 5 keywords, up to 5. Some people didn't want to track 5, but we allow for up to 5 keywords.
Yeah, I mean, we will track 5 keywords, and that's at a 7x7 grid. By the way, Chris, what is the update frequency on that? Is that once a week? Or are we doing once a month or what?
Once a week.
It's once a week.
Once a week. Okay. So we've got 7x7 grids with 5 keywords. If you want to expand the maps area so that it's larger, we can do that, but we'll probably only be able to increase the distance between nodes. So it's still a 7x7 grid. That way it uses the same amount of credits because it costs us money to generate those reports. Each report generated requires, it ends up costing money. In Bright Local, it's credit. It's a credit-based system. So if we're giving you 5 keywords across a 49 or a 7x7 grid, which with 1 mile spacing is 49 square miles. But if you want to increase your maps coverage, if we increase the spacing to 2 miles per between nodes, then it goes to 98 square miles. Then if we do it to 3 miles between nodes, what is it? 147 square miles. Does that make sense? So in other words, we'll track up to 5 keywords and we will do a 7x7 grid. What the spacing is of that grid is can be modified based on your needs.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, question. Do we have to give you questions, Local Fury, or will we, Local Fury, check our profile, the client's profile, and create the questions ourselves?
We will create the questions for you, although we have had some people that want to submit their own questions, which is perfectly fine. If you want to submit your own questions, please feel free to do so via support. but we will generate them for you. We're generating generic questions that would be asked, that would be appropriate for the specific business type. So we do it by business category. So in other words, whatever the Google business category is, we'll go in and we'll generate questions that are relevant to that type of business and that are generic enough that, they can be reused across multiple locations. And then, like I said, we use rephrasers like Quillbot, for example, or paraphrasers. I always call it rephraser, but like Quillbot or something, or a page rewriter or something like that, where we'll take, we've already started developing kind of a questions library, so to speak, with between 15 to 20 questions per business category. But what we do is we take those and then we'll plug those into like Quillbot or page rewriter or something like that, so that it rephrases all of them to where, we constantly, we're asking basically the same questions, but they're all worded slightly differently. And again, it's across all different profiles and different locations.
So any discount for bulk buyers? I can answer this one. No, what you see right now is by far the best pricing. That may be an option if we're talking, 25, 50 plus locations down the road. But right now with this pricing, it's kind of a, hey, if you're interested, hop in. This is as good as it's going to get for the time being.
Yeah, if the number's high enough, of course, there's no question. Just contact us at support with, if you've got a lot of locations, let us know and we'll work something out, I'm sure. If that makes sense.
All right. Gonna cruise through this one, Bradley. I know the answer to this one. This is a lot like link building. What's the average length of time for a GBP to start seeing green dots?
It varies. There's too many variables.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Can Local Fury include, can Local Fury also create weekly posts, citations, etc., in addition to what it's doing?
No, not yet. Anyways, we posting may be something. I don't know. I've thought about that too, but we're not acting on behalf of the business. We're acting on behalf of consumers. Does that make sense? So if we were acting on behalf of the business, then it would make sense for us to publish posts for the business. But we are acting as consumers, generating signals as consumers would for the business that we want to potentially do business with. Does that make sense? So in other words, we're not acting as the Google business, so we're not posting, we're not publishing posts or doing citations or anything else. That's not what this is for. We're acting as the consumer. So anything that a consumer would do, we can do. We can post photos, videos, reviews are coming. We can post questions. We can do those kind of things. But we're not going to publish posts right now. Maybe in the future that might be something we integrate with some of the other web apps that we're developing, such as the question or the keyword tool. There are some other web apps that one of our Chris G, our support manager, has been developing some really cool tools. You guys will all be made aware of them when they're ready, and that might be something we work into it as well.
Cool. Let's see. Question: can we give you, manager, access to a client's GBP while also keeping manager control to make posts?
Yes, of course. Yeah, you can have as many managers to a Google business profile as you want. So you can be a manager and give us access to.
Yeah. How long does a client need to stay on the service once started? I think this is kind of a link building type of question.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You could essentially, once you got the rankings that you wanted, provided it's receiving its own real organic, traffic from real customers and everything else, then you could potentially pull back from it. And that's the thing. It's like it's kind of like a chicken and an egg thing, right? Like which came first, the chicken and the egg. So we can manipulate signals to get it to rank, and once it's ranked, then it should be generating its own organic, like natural signals, right? And so you could potentially pull back from that and discontinue it altogether. What I would suggest is that as you start to rank, you decrease kind of like, the need for the kind of engagement signal. So let me put it in terms that probably most of you would understand. So when it comes to like traditional CTR manipulation, click-through manipulation signals, generally you want to manipulate signals until you start to rank. And as you start to rank, you start to receive natural organic signals. You want to start to dial down your click-through signals, your search and click signals mainly. And why is that? Because the volume would be unnaturally high if you are artificially inflating search and click numbers, and you're also getting real valid search and click signals at the normal kind of click-through rate for the search volume of that search query or those search queries that you have submitted. So my point that I'm trying to make is if you keep a relatively high volume of manipulated search and click signals, and you also start to rank and you start receiving organic signals, you're going to have an unnaturally high search and click volume compared to the historical metrics of all the other, previous to your profile starting to rank. Does that make sense? So in other words, you want to kind of dial back as you increase in rank, you want to decrease your signals that you're sending. So the same thing could be applied to this, although again, CT signals, that's just a kind of a way to relate what I'm talking about here, because CTR signals or manipulation is just a component of what we're doing. It's just a piece of an overall pie that, of a larger part that we're doing. And so what I would recommend is that once you start to rank that, we move kind of the signals around to other types of keywords and things like that, instead of, what I mean, start switching it up and expanding. But like I said, you could potentially, once you ranked, you could, discontinue the service. And then if things start to slip, re-engage the service, if that makes sense.
And not just because like, oh yeah, don't leave or don't do that. But what Bradley said, you can switch keywords, which I think is, something like, oh yeah, maybe we need to explain that better, is like, cool, you're not like putting in your order and then that's it, you can never change, right? We're not going to deal with changing your keywords once a week, but if you need to change it because you see, hey, I've got the results I want to start in on these other keywords, it's not like you have to go back and order another service. You can use the same service and say, hey guys, can I switch out some of these keywords?
Yep.
Cool. Question here, somebody posted for somebody else, kind of two here. How does Local Fury compare to other CTR tools like Viper? Is this a more advanced tool than Abyss? Is Ravji? Is that? I can't remember.
Yeah.
We did a webinar with him a long time ago.
Yeah.
What's the name of his CTR tool?
Well, he had CTR Booster, but then he sold it. Then he just more recently was promoting Tony Hayes, I think it was. Tony Hayes has a CT manipulation tool too. But that's the difference. There's like Viper, which is Michael Bose's tool, Viper Tools, and he's releasing the Kraken, which is fabulous. I've got beta access to that, and I'm super excited about that too. But those are different. Those are all CTR tools, which are good for organic ranking maps, ranking video stuff, all of that. Those are all tools that are, it's about search and click signals or referral traffic, which is specifically Michael from Viper Tools, the Kraken that he's releasing soon. That is all about sending chained click-through signals or daisy chained click-through signals, which are like referral signals, referral traffic, and all of that. Those are all valuable. All that stuff is valuable, guys, but those are all types of like search and click signals mainly, and to some degree, some referral traffic signals. Those are all great. Those can still be applied alongside Local Fury signals, because Local Fury signals are all about maps. There is again, a small component of CTR manipulation, but it is only a small component of the signals that we're generating. The signals we generate are mostly maps signals. Does that make sense? So like, it's like an 80-20 or even like a 90-10. Like 90% of the signals we generate are maps, maps exclusively maps signals. That's what I was trying to say. And then the other 10% are kind of like CTR signals. So you can run concurrently Local Fury signals along with CTR signals. The only thing I would recommend is that if you're going to be doing like traditional CT manipulation signals, is that you do less on the map side of things and more on the organic side of things, if that makes sense.
Cool. Let's see, getting back to Mike, I said, let me know the answer to the New Zealand GMB, please, as well. Talk to a developer on the side, and that is something that we can in fact do, and the signals would originate from there. So if you have
so just to clarify, we can generate profiles in New Zealand?
Correct.
Perfect.
Yeah. So if you have follow-up questions about that, it's going to be much easier to do it on the side. Shoot us an email to support@semanticmastery.com
or support@localfury.com.
Yeah, that too. I'm losing my mind. I'm wearing the shirt. I can only think of one thing at a time. So, all right, let's see. What do we got next here?
I had to see a comment from Daniel. that just popped in. Let me read this real quick. He says, I was using Viper tools, but need to scale. And it's easier just to pay Local Fury instead of setting things up and doing it myself in Viper. Yeah, look, all of the different CTR apps out there they all have pluses and minuses, right? Pros and cons. Some of them are easier to use, like the cloud-based services or cloud-based apps are so much easier to use because you don't have to, update software all the time. And, they all have pros and cons. And I totally get where you're coming from. Like, because I use a number of CTR tools myself, a number of them. And you're right. One of the biggest drawbacks about using most CTR apps is that it just requires so much manual attention to set up campaigns and to duplicate campaigns and all that. And I get all that, and that's painful. And that's part of the reason why we decided to make this a done for you service. Because number one, like I mentioned several times already today, we see too many people set up Ctr manipulation campaigns the wrong way. People always want to go hammer away at keywords when really you should start with branded searches, always, end of story. No questions. like we don't, there's nothing to debate about there. You should always start with branded search queries, but we see people that want to jump right into search and click keywords, but also because, like I said, we know Adam did this in kind of like the pre-sales, like one of his pitch videos and things like that. It was like, do you want to have all of your signals kind of set up and generated for you with no more than 15 minutes of work? And that's what we mean, because I know how painful it is myself in dealing with my own clients and my own agency work and everything else, and setting up CTR campaigns and constantly having to go in and manage that stuff. It sucks. It's no fun. But it's required. So that's part of the reason why we wanted to do a done for you service, so that you guys don't have to deal with that. You just, whatever you want to subscribe to for however many locations, you go in, you submit the details, you're done. We'll handle it from that point on.
All right, this one's good, and I pay special attention to this one. So Rob was asking, on the Local Fury sales page, the what you get section doesn't say much. Do you have a list of services we're buying? Is it just the elements that Bradley reviewed during the training?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah,
Actually,
so go ahead.
Can you go to localfury.com in your browser and scroll down and click on the order and talk a bit about the different packages as well. So if you scroll down all the way and you click to order or sign up, you can see there's 3 different packages. Maybe you can also zoom in a little bit. Yeah, sweet. And explain a bit what's the difference and which one to order and stuff, because there were a couple questions regarding that. I mean, it's written there anyways, but you know how it is.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what Chris is trying to say is we have, based on, and this is the same way I set up my link building campaigns, it's based on the population of where the Google business profile is located. Now, keep in mind that, if you, so basically if where the Google business profile is located, physically located, if it has that city, right, has a population up to 200K, then we recommend this. And these are recommendations, guys. But up to 500K or 500,000 in population, it would be this. And for over 500,000. So the difference is the volume of signals that we send. Does that make sense? So again, we have all the different signals that we generate, which are here. If I can find my screen again, here are the signals that we generate. Go back to here. You guys might want to take a screenshot of that. But those are the signals that we generate. And like I said, it varies. We have a range for each different package level or competition level or subscription level, whatever you want to call it. We have a range of signals for each one of these types of things that we send, and we do it randomly. And that's because we don't want any footprint. So we know we've had people say, well, like, I want to be able to tell my clients that they're getting, 6 post likes and, 3 questions posted every month. And I'm sorry, but that would be unnatural as hell. And we're not going to do something that could end up being, detrimental later in the, because it's a pattern, right? Google can very quickly identify patterns. So that's something we don't want to do. But again, that's why we recommend that you have Google Business Insights. Monitor Google Business Insights. You can see the increase in activity there. Substantial increase in activity very quickly too, which is great. Especially like if you guys know in GB, I don't know if I showed this in any of the slides. Let me just go through and see. But you know how there's at the top, I don't have that. Okay, well, we can look at this one. So right here, this wheel, that shows insights, that shows the types of search queries. So there's direct, there's branded, there's discovery, or there's direct discovery and branded or whatever. You guys will start seeing a significant increase in those as well. And then when you hover over each one of those sections on a live Gmb Insights report, it will show you like the number of search queries that occurred for each one of those types. There's only showing 2 here, but in other reports, you'll see one will also show branded. But then you'll also see an increase in activity through here. So these are like the signals that are shown: view on search, view on maps. You'll see an increase here. You'll also see an increase on driving directions for storefront businesses. And you'll also see on the photos, at the very bottom of Insights, there's the businesses like you, and like there's the photos section, and it shows engagement with photos. You'll see an increase of an activity on there as well. Does that make sense? And we can give you a kind of a more specified range of signals that are for each package level. I don't know that we have that available at the moment. Chris, can you confirm?
What was the question?
I was asking if we have like a range of signals for each package level that we can provide.
Well,
if it's if it's no right now, it's no. Just
Yeah, it's a no, and we need to clarify that because I know some people want it for their reporting. So I know we've talked about it, and it's more of just how big of a demand is that. So
we can definitely make it custom for people, but it's not.
It's not recommended.
Yeah.
So real quick, wanted to cruise through some pricing questions. Are we locked into these prices for additional orders in the future? No. What you order before Friday it will be at this pricing. And if the price goes up in the future, the price goes up in the future. Is the pricing per website, or in this case, Google Business Profile? Yes, that is correct. And are you grandfathered in at this price for life? Yes. Caveat in the sense of whatever you buy before Friday and you keep that subscription active, that's it. There is no trial month or lower price month. You just get it at this price for as long as you keep your account active. Let me clear that out. We talked real quick. We talked about the special pricing for the agencies. Not right now. This is, really low launch pricing. If you feel like you have some very large scale needs, get in touch with us, support at Local Fury, and we can talk to you about that. So Mark, let me scroll down here. Can we set locations to target within a city? Example, London is a big place and some businesses may only target a subset, but not in a radius. For me, I'm just thinking like, well, yeah, you just define your search grid distance separation. And that's what you have to do. We can't do a non-regular, like weird puzzle shape, that goes all over the place. It would just have
that's
to
true.
be, yeah.
But as far as I think I know where he's at, what he's asking. So the search grid is going to be a square, and we can move that, that grid around. But specifically, can we manipulate signals like to a storefront business from specific sections of a city? Yes, we can. You just need to specify, like, I'm going to speak in American terms because I'm not in the UK, but like by zip code, right? If you wanted only signals generated from specific zip codes, then you would just provide us with those zip codes, and that's not a problem. We can do that for you. In other words, we can have like driving signals only coming from a random Latin long point within specific zip codes that you provide to us.
Okay, so Jay has a question. I'd like to jump in on this. What assurances are built into white label it, keep the separation regarding the GBP manager access? Is the access white labeled generic? And I'm guessing that kind of goes back to what you were talking about, setting up the email, right, Bradley?
No, you guys, you have to put local support at Local Fury in there so that all your clients know where you're getting your signals. No, I'm kidding. This is the email. This is the email that I set up. Whoops, not without the equal sign. tech@mapsmonitor.com. That is the email that I set up for Google Business Manager access so that we can integrate Google Business Insights reports with Bright Local. Does that make sense? So it's tech@mapsmonitor.com. That is a generic email address that you should be able to add as a manager to your client's account, your client's Google Business profiles without it raising any red flags. You just tell them it's an app. that monitors Google Business Insights. That's it. That's the truth. Don't lie to your clients. Just tell them it's an app that monitors Google Business Insights that helps us identify opportunities. That's all you have to say. And again, I will provide a tutorial video in the knowledge base area. I will have that done within the next 2 or 3 days. It'll be done this week for sure. That will provide you tutorial on how to add this email address to Google Business, as well as what to tell your clients, which is what I just mentioned. It's an app that we use to monitor Google Business Insights to identify opportunities. That's all you need to say.
Here's a follow on, and I really love this one because it was submitted by someone anonymous. Says, if we're paranoid and don't want to give manager access, can we still use Local Fury? So yeah, you would just get the local search grid reporting.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that's absolutely true, guys. It's optional. It's highly recommended, but it's optional because again, if you want this fully done for you, we will be monitoring Google Business Insights and finding new opportunities, new keywords. We'll know when we can start to expand with different sorts of search, pushing on different search queries and all that kind of stuff. So same thing I tell my link building clients, because I request Search Console access for my link building clients. Not everybody has to do it, but if you do, it gives me access to more data, which helps me to be better at link building. So the same thing goes with this. We can provide a better service to you if we have access to that data. So that's why we're asking for it, but it is optional. Highly recommended, but optional. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But I would recommend that you monitor insights regularly and then, provide us with updates as you start seeing more opportunities.
Can we switch GBPs in accounts? I'm thinking the way we want to do it is, no, you would want to stop service on one and start another one. I think that's what they're asking.
No, you cannot. Like, it's quite simple. Like, you order one thing, it's tied to one GBP, and you can change the keywords for that one. That's pretty much like it.
Yeah. Follow-up question, kind of like that. Can you stop one GBP and start a new one on the same price or plan? No. Once you keep look, we're going to work with people, but yeah, if you're clearly just swapping profiles out, don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is if somebody purchased 10 today, just as an example, and they've got 10 clients in, and then a client decides to stop using them as their SEO or whatever, and they've got another location, can they plug it in for the same subscription price? I mean, I don't know. I was
about to say, we'll deal. We can't say yes, but we're not the type to say no. We also like being treated well. If we're being taken advantage of, we'll shut it down. If not, hey, we'll work with you. So
yeah, so I guess the best answer for that would be we'll take it on a case-by-case basis. I want to lean on saying yes, we can accommodate that for you guys, because if you subscribe now and you want to keep the subscription, you can swap out. But if you're contacting us once a month to swap out Google Business assets every month, then we're going to have to can that. We'll have to stop that. Does that make sense? So I would say tentatively yes, but contact support at Local Fury with that request when it comes up, and we'll take it on a case by case. Is that fair, guys? You agree with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we're getting some feedback. So a couple of people are saying they don't like that part of it, which I could understand, I guess. I mean, it's another thing too, if it's oh, the price is going to go up 500% in 3 days, but that's not the case. So we'll talk about it, think about how we can make that work, because we also don't want to cause any issues. So we want to consider how that would actually work. So
yeah, I think we can accommodate that, is what I'm saying, guys, as long as it's not being abused from you guys. And I don't see why we couldn't accommodate that. So that was a good question.
Cool.
But that's what this is, a new service, remember. So that's part of the reason, like I mentioned at the very, very beginning of today's webinar, this is still kind of like a soft launch. We're kind of coming out of beta, but we're not fully ready to launch. That's why we're offering this to you guys the way that we are, to hope to improve the service. So work with us. We'll work with you. How about that?
Sounds good. All right. We kind of covered this, but just want to reiterate this as how do you measure the movement on the map created by campaigns using Local Fury? How many keywords are included for each level? So basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got the local search grid reporting. We're going to now have the additional reporting, and then 5 keywords per. So for each one, it doesn't matter if you have low, medium, high comp, 5 keywords.
Yep. And Mike, I see your Mike, and by the way, I know Merlino's on here too, because I saw you earlier say, Brandon, say it again. So right on, man. By the way, thanks for joining, man. He says, cool, not switching every month, but maybe in 6 months, switch GBPs. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, guys. If it's reasonable, like, look, I'll speak for us right now. If it's reasonable, yes, we will, we'll accommodate you. Just don't abuse it, and that's fine. That's no problem. And that's only because I think that's reasonable. That's how I would expect that myself. So I'm hoping not stepping on anybody's toes here, guys. But I'm going to say if it's reasonable, there's no reason we can't accommodate that.
Okay. Let's see. What will the price increase be? We'll be sharing that. I literally just don't have it in front of me. It is not a major price increase. I forget, and I don't want to say, I forgot if it was $10 or $15 on like across, or if it was slightly different, but it's in that ballpark. So we'll be sending out some more information on that. I just don't have it in front of me since I was prepping for the webinar.
Well, the best price is right now.
Yes.
It will not get cheaper, and there will not be a Black Friday offer that cheap.
I gotta answer this one because Daniel.
Okay, ask Bradley if Local Fury causes gray hair. He has no gray hair on Local Fury website, but it's coming through on this Webby.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it funny how? Yes, it's this fucking app. No, I'm kidding. That's funny, Daniel. I've been trying to answer that for a few minutes now, but yeah, no, that's that photos from like 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm getting gray very quick. So and that's, you know why? Because my daughter's a teenager now. That's why.
I want to get in front of this before. I can't believe no one brought this up, because I saw this name and I was like, man, somebody's going to misspell this and we're going to be Local Furry. And
oh yeah, we've seen
for
that.
For those of you who don't know, I'll let you do your own searching, but yeah.
Local Furry. Oh no, I don't know that I want to pull that up on this.
Okay, well, let's get back to the questions. We got a couple more. Did we? I apologize if we kind of went over this, but Mike's asking, what is the main difference with each level or each package in terms of the activity or what we do?
The volume of signals. That's all. They're all the same. All package levels get the same type of signals. It's the volume of signals, meaning the number of signals generated. It increases. Obviously, the more competition, the more volume of signals we send. So that's what it is, guys. Remember, we don't have a one size fits all package because that wouldn't make sense. It would be unnatural if we applied the same amount of signals to a low competition area that has a population of 40,000 as we did to a major metropolitan city that has a population of over 1 million. It wouldn't make sense. It would be a clear, spam signal if we were to send the same amount of signals for 1 million population to a 40,000 population type of business. And that would be like, it would be way too many. And likewise, if we tried to send signals that would be appropriate for 40,000 population to 1 million, it wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't even make a dent. You know what I'm saying? So we have to vary the amount of signals, and we have kind of a range, like I said, that we work within, but that's fluid too, in that a location that is at 500,000 in population and versus a location that's in 1.5 million. Those are all the same package or subscription level, but we're going to send more signals to the 1.5 million location than we would to a 500,000 location. Does that make sense? Because again, it is a different volume of signals required.
Sorry, David said you guys are selling Local Furry packages. That's disgusting. Yep, the SEO part was all a ruse. That's what it's actually about.
He said, I Googled Local Fury by mistake. Don't do it. The world is sick.
Oh my God.
Now we know that webinar's over because it's devolved into this shit.
Well, good question. So I'm going to do two things. One, there's a good question here, but Blake was asking, what's the best way to calculate location population?
Just search Google for the city plus state or whatever, and it comes up right in the knowledge panel, guys.
Yeah,
comes right up in the knowledge panel.
And then Bradley, there's still several open questions, and I will reiterate, guys, Hump Day Hangouts is the place for these types of questions. But we have about 15 questions. I don't know if you want to cruise through and see if you think that some of them might be more applicable today. Or we can just
I got 9 minutes left for this webinar, so I'm going to roll through the open 16 questions I see in the Q&A box.
Here we go. Let's go.
This is the lightning round, as they call it. When posting questions, so this when posting questions to a GBP, can we upload it from the back end using the Q&A API, or does it need to come from a client? That's a good question. I think you can post questions and answers as the business owner. I think you can do that, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't do it, but I think you can do that. But why it's more, it's a better signal if it's a question posted from a user, not from a customer or a prospective customer. It's a better signal than it is if it's a question posted by the business owner, which makes sense to have like FAQs posted by the business owner. So frequently asked questions plus answers. That makes sense. And I think you can do that. I've not done that, but I think you can do that. But like I said, the question is a better signal when it's published from a potential customer or a Google user, if that makes sense. That's a good question. And we're getting a storm, so this might end up taking me out anyway. Okay, next one is, do you add OBL outbound links to the posts? Do you add an outbound link to the post? Yes, as far as like Google Business posts, yeah, of course. We always, I mean, 9 times out of 10 we do. I use the CTA button, the call to action button, either learn more or book is how you can add a URL to that button. That's a do follow link from Google Business Posts. It's the anchor text is either learn more or book. So it's miscellaneous anchor text, but it is a do follow link. So yes, of course we link out usually to whatever it is that we want to push, or we're linking to a previous post within a Google Business Post silo. I talk all about that in the mastermind. You can also go to the gbprocess.com, gbprocess.com, and get a checklist that is just kind of a high level checklist of like the different things that we do to optimize the on-page side of Google Business Profile. Next question. For branded searches, does it matter if it isn't directly related to my site services? I'm not sure I understand that. For branded searches, does it matter if it isn't directly related to my site services? I don't really understand that. People are going to search for a brand, or they're going to search for a service, or they're going to search for brand plus service. Does that make sense? So I don't really know I understand that question. If you can clarify, I'll try to answer it. How do you increase dwell time, engage them to stay longer? Yeah, that's precisely the point. Like increasing dwell time is, just staying on the profile longer, checking out different sections of the profile. As I mentioned before, like on mobile, when you are looking at a knowledge panel in Google Maps for a brand or a company, there's like the kind of like tabs at the top. As I mentioned before, they were here. We can look at those. Sorry, back up one more. Services, reviews, photos, updates, which are posts about those types of sections. So engaging with those, looking at photos, liking stuff, like all of those are signals, but also increases dwell time. Okay. Daniel says, I have about 35 SEO clients. I've tried to use different software to manage clients' listing for my staff to use. What is the best software for GBP questions to be answered through, or replies to reviews, notifications of edits and the listings, uploading images, etc.? Well, the app that I use now for Google Business Posts is OneUp. So it's shit. Anyways, I use OneUp app. OneUp, and I can't remember. Let's see, I might be logged into that. So it's oneupapp.io. I don't know that you can answer questions with that though. Most of my clients I have integrated with High Level, because I use High Level, and so High Level notifies my clients whenever, or me if my clients don't respond to questions. It depends on what the arrangement is I have with each client. But High Level, I integrate with High Level, but that requires the agency account is $300 a month, and then each Google Business location has its own sub account, and I set up notifications that way. But you can, I know that as far as OneUp, what is shit? I keep signing it. As far as Google Business Posts, let's see, OneUp. I think it was oneupapp.io. I think that's what I was showing. This is what I use for like Google Business Posts, scheduling, and everything else. You could probably find right on their sales page whether they integrate with questions and stuff as well. But this is a great service for scheduling Google Business Posts. So this is what I use for that. But I use High Level for integrating with notifications for each Google Business profile. It sends notifications to the client or to me, or both, depending on what the arrangement is, whenever a question comes in or a review gets posted or anything else. But there are other post scheduling apps out there, like Local Falcon's one of them, Local Brand Manager is I think another one of them. There's several of them out there that are a little bit more robust, that do some more of those other things. I'm not sure if OneUp app does that or not, because I only use this for post scheduling, but this is a really, really good service for that. So anyway, sorry, I use High Level for all that stuff. So I know there's other services out there that will integrate with all those other tools. How do you manage several profile accounts without Google connecting those accounts? Well, it's okay to have, like, again, for example, like Local Falcon or, any one of these, like OneUp, for example, they all integrate with Google Business, right? And so if you have 40 locations all integrated with OneUp, is that a footprint? Well, yeah, but there's thousands of people using OneUp. So what difference does it make? You know what I mean? So if you're using any sort of post scheduling app, you're leaving a footprint from the post scheduler, right? So it's the same thing. Well, just like Bright Local. Bright Local is a reporting app that integrates with Google Business. And so if you connect Bright Local, if you're using which I do, I've been using Bright Local since like 2013. No kidding. I've been using it for like almost 10 years. And I've got over 100 locations in my Bright Local account, and they're all connected to Bright Local. Is that a footprint? Well, maybe, but there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or even more businesses out there connected with Bright Local. So I don't see that as being an issue. Okay. What percentage do you think a local company should be should optimally be showing for brand links as reported by for brand links? I think that meant to be brand links. Should a company optimally be showing for brand links as reported by Gmb Insights? I'm not sure what you mean by brand links. Maybe brand search queries. It's going to vary. It's going to vary as they brand to become stronger. Your brand queries in that wheel that I was showing earlier in Insights, you should start seeing more brand searches, but those would be actually come under direct searches, direct queries, not brand. It's different. It's the way that Google has that worded in Insights is weird, but when you're talking about brand searches, you're really talking as how it's listed or displayed in Google Business Insights. It's direct searches. Does that make sense? And again, as the brand increases in authority, like and gains more exposure, it becomes more well known. Brand searches, or what is known as direct searches in Gbp Insights, should be increasing. But there are some industries where it's still always going to be heavier on discovery queries than it is on direct queries, if that makes sense. And that's just the nature of it depends on the business, certainly. Okay, guys, I got to wrap it up, but I'm going to try to get through like 3 more. With Google reducing the reach for local search, does Local Fury have some methodology to extend the GBP reach? Well, I mean, it does to a degree with storefront businesses, with service area businesses. It's just about overcoming those signals with a number of ways. Scott, I know you're in the mastermind, but you can overcome proximity issues with service area businesses a number of ways. One of which I highly recommend is uploading photos that are from out in the service area where you want exposure for. But I mean photos that were taken on a mobile device in those areas. So like telling your clients, for example, if you're in service area businesses, like my tree contractor clients, I tell them all the time, take photos when you're on the job from your phone, upload them to your Google Business profile. You don't even have to be logged in as a manager. You can upload them as a user directly through Google Maps to your Google Business profile. From photos that you take, so your technicians, your tree guys, when they go out on a job, just snap 3 to 5 photos. That's it. With location on, make sure the GPS is on their phone, and then just upload the photos directly to Google Maps. And that's all you need to do. You can do that consistently, especially for service area businesses, because out in those areas where they're performing those services, that's how you start to train Google that the business does indeed provide services in those areas, right? So we can do that to a degree with Local Fury, right? If you provide us with photos that are already stamped with the EXIF data, right? The geo data. So you can do that. You can provide us with photos that you have manipulated or that you get from your clients and submit them to us, and we can submit them as photos from our users, like our Local Fury profiles. Okay. Let's see. Jay says, generic Q&A question, is it good practice to add questions with one's own local guide account, even if not from the area, and then log in as a manager of the GMB and answer? I suppose you could do that. I don't like to do that, but I guess you could. You probably could and get away with it. I don't typically like doing that, so I would prefer now just to use Local Fury profiles to post the questions. So if I wanted to boost my Google reviews, what's the best way to do that? Ask your clients for more reviews. You know what I mean? Like set up a review campaign for your clients. I use a snapshot in high level called GHL Smart Reviews, which is fabulous, but there's a number of services at Bright Local. Bright Local has a great review collecting like service, like a review reputation building service, part of Bright Local. So set that up for your clients and do that so that they're getting real valid reviews. If you want to spam reviews, you know, we can do that at Local Fury eventually again, but I you know, always try to get real reviews from real customers if possible. And in the meantime, until we do Local Fury reviews in our free group, our Facebook group, the free group, Adrian Bailey is a provider that I recommend that I've used for reviews quite a few times. He's really, really good. And I've posted about that in the free group. You can find him in there, Adrian Bailey. All right, 2 more guys, and I'm going to wrap it up.
Real quick, Bradley, want to say 2 things. Somebody was asking about Hump Day Hangouts. If you haven't joined us on Wednesdays, you do have more questions. That's the place to ask us general SEO questions, you know, client prospecting, whatever it might be. That's semanticmastery.com/HDHO. And as far as putting together packages, when you go to the checkout page, you can select like 10 plus and then put in how many you want. So like if you want to grab 20, you can do that. You don't have to order 1 or 2 at a time. When you click on it, you'll see the drop down. You can select that. And right now, this is what we're going to be offering for the time being is these 3 packages, but you can buy a block of them right now if you want to.
Yeah. Do we have a service of recommendation for the initial Google Business Profile setup? Well, we not yet. It's coming. We're going to be launching a Google Business white label, like full optimization white label service here soon. It's not available just yet. So, guys, I have to wrap it up. I'm actually 4 minutes over, so I've got to wrap it up, guys. We appreciate y'all. If there's any additional questions that did not get answered, you can ask tomorrow, or excuse me, Wednesday on Hump Day Hangouts, or just reach out to us at support@localfury.com. We'll try to accommodate you. Like I said, guys, join now with the current pricing the way that it is. Help us to continue further developing it. We will probably be reaching out to some of those of you that join to inquire about your thoughts and things like that. As we try to get more information from you guys as users, we can continue to improve the process, but come check it out. Let's see what we can do.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Sweet.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.